Hello, everybody. This is my story. I figured I'd just put it on here because it's a lot easier than writing it out. So whoever sees this, this is a little bit of my story. But anyways, my life started off pretty much perfect, in my opinion. I didn't have a father or a brother or sister, but I was extremely, extremely connected to my mother, like on another level. And I'm glad I was, because my mother was probably the coolest mother I've ever met to this day. I am honestly blessed and lucky on another level to have my mother be my mother, because she did every bone in her body was literally to like put me in sports. I did so many sports, from bowling, soccer, hockey. She bought me trampoline. She bought me a snowmobile. I know she spoiled me a lot, which is a whole other subject, but she loved me so much. She wanted the best for me, and she wanted everything for me. So she did everything in her power to make sure I was in every sports imaginable. And but I did not have a dad or brothers or sisters. So I was really, really connected to my mother. When I was 15, that's when I was at a circus camp, trampoline camp, acrobatics, whatever. I was at a ski hill. I love skiing. I love getting inverted, doing flips. That was like my cup of tea. I really enjoyed just kind of throwing myself into the air and, doing flips and all kinds of other cool stuff. I was pretty good. I had a big trampoline in my backyard, and I practiced a lot. Like, even throughout the winter, we were just going crazy. I went to gymnastics gyms all the time to use their foam pits, stuff like that, to do like jumping and flipping into the foam pits. But on the July 15th, I think it was, I don't even care about that date anymore, really, but that was the day that I broke my neck. So I was inside the resort at the time, where the ceilings were really low, and there was like a mini trampoline, and you kind of run, you jump on this mini trampoline. And I remember doing it. I did a double front flip. My legs like barely hit I think they hit the roof a little bit, like just barely, just touched the roof. I landed on my back, made a double rotation, landed on my back, and almost knocked the wind out of myself. There was a gym mat, and it was on concrete, but it was like a pretty hard gym mat. So I went around, and I said, I'm going to go do another double again, try this again. The second I did, I went and jumped, and the second I jumped on the trampoline, I decided, hey, I'm only going to do a single here, not a double. And then my body was doing the rotation for a double, not a single. So I kind of like did the first front flip, opened up, landed on my head, neck, and broke 4 out of the 7 vertebrae in my neck. Right away, I lost all sense of gravity. It was super, super strange. I got super hot to the touch. I had to put fans all around me to wait for the ambulance. The ambulance was about an hour away, so it was really long. It seemed like a super long wait. Felt like a firework went off in my ear. It was like all my 5 senses just went skyrocketing. It was a crazy experience, super crazy, like decapitating myself, like what the hell, like just unbelievable. So they strapped me to this wooden like lifeguard type board, threw me in the ambulance, and I remember the back of my head was just so sore from going an hour drive back to the hospital and hitting bumps. And I was just like, I remember the pain in the back of my neck was just insane. So I got to the hospital, and they pretty much did x-rays, and I was just yelling at the top of my lungs because I knew something was wrong, and I was not right. And then they put me under right away, and then they put me in the plane and flew me straight to Sick Kids. And then Sick Kids put me on an incubator where I had a tracheotomy right here. Actually, they put me on an incubator in my mouth where I had tubes in my mouth for 2 weeks, and I still wasn't recovering as fast as I was hoping. So that's where they put the incubator in my throat, thinking I'd be on it maybe for life, which, hopefully not. But I remember the nurses and the doctors telling me, like, yeah, there's lots of possibilities you can walk again. I thought, great, and I kept envisioning in my mind, seeing myself on crutches, seeing myself walking, seeing myself, like, still being able to succeed, and not fully recovering, but I seen myself on crutches. I remember even talking to them about forearm crutches, and can I use this maybe one day? And I had to blink on a chart to do words, spelling on letters, so they could understand what I was saying, because I couldn't even talk at the time. So I swear I manifested that exact stuff. So wherever my mind was, eventually rolled into that. I feel like it, like to a T almost. So that's kind of where the first chapter of my life, where I was, let's say, at 100%, well, I dropped down to, let's say, 50 or even lower. I was pretty low. I was in the super darkest places I could possibly imagine in my life right now. That was the darkest time in my life, where I was in the hospital, sick kids for 2 months, doing crazy physiotherapy and just unbelievable amounts of treatments, and suction cups down my throat, and the cameras everywhere in every hole. And it was just like, I had a tracheotomy, or a halo, and they got the scars there from the halo to support my neck. Then I went to Lyndhurst, which was a rehab hospital, for a year, and a lot of Filipinos there helping me out, and they were just like, that was a whole other experience there with other quadriplegics and paraplegics, and just trying to like get used to my new life, which was just like, wow. Like, and at the same time, it's just me and my mother. So my mother came back from Sault Ste. Marie. She decided to move to Barrie to be closer to the hospitals, because she was just back and forth to Lyndhurst so much. So we ended up moving to Barrie from Sault Ste. Marie, and it put a lot of stress on her, a ton of stress. And I was just like losing my mind. Even after a couple years later, I just was having a hard time, like just stressed, and even mean to her a little bit. Like, it just was not a good spot to be in my life, where I'm now fully in a power wheelchair. And I was one of the most active kids you can imagine in high school and in elementary school, just crazy active. Like, I just was like, Mr. Popular, like I just was going for it, And then when it just put me right in a power chair, it was like, holy shit, it stopped me right in my tracks. So this is where things get a little more interesting. My mother ended up getting a lot of stress around when I was 22. This is about 5-6 years after my accident, and she ended up getting breast cancer. So I didn't really know much about cancers at the time or any of this stuff, and I don't feel like I was there enough for her. I kind of ignored her treatments and stuff like that, but she would take the bus to Princess Margaret from Barrie to get her treatments for her breast cancer. And so they said that they had like 1 in 99 chances that the radiation from her breast, or like from her body, would give her another cancer of some sort. So it was like she wanted her breast removed. They said, no, you're too young. She's like 50 years old at the time. But she didn't care. She had me. She was satisfied with losing her breast, whatever. But no, they said, we're going to give you radiation. So they gave her radiation. She ended up getting cancer a second time. This was leukemia, so a lot more serious. So this is where now I'm a little older. Now I'm 26 or so, and I'm realizing, holy shit, like now I understand things more. And I'm like, man, this is like another deep, dark area in my life where I just lost my mind. And like, it kept breaking me down further and further, to the point like I feel like I had nothing left. So she passed away in my arms at Princess Margaret. It was the world's worst thing to go through. Like, just unbelievable. Just the pain of the chemo and the treatments and everything else leading up to their death is the worst thing you could possibly imagine. Like, it doesn't even make sense in this world. It's so sad. And she just had like no bad bones in her body. Like, everything she wanted was just good for me and the world. And she just was such a beautiful person. I'm super blessed to have my mother as my mother. I love you, Mom. So after she passed away, I ended up, moving to Florida, and I spent a year there in the tropics in the sun, because that's where my heart is. And I just was like, feel like I was talking to her the whole time, which a lot of weird things happened when I was down there and meeting cool people, and just she was guiding me around. It was very magical and mystical and just amazing, I came back to here a year later, started dating Lindsay Kilpatrick. We were doing great for 5-6 years. We had our on and offs. We were young, but she loved me on another level. Like, super lucky to have Lindsay as my girlfriend. She just loved every bone in my body, and just didn't mind me being in a wheelchair, and supported me. And we had our ups and downs like every other relationship. And I think as I would have grown older, I probably would have gained more respect and more everything for everybody, like, because I was just young and still partying and not really knowing, like, feeling like I'm going crazy in my mind. So then eventually she ends up getting the C word. I like calling it the C word, cancer. But she ended up getting it, and she's got a daughter and everything, and she ended up having a lump on her chest, and that was supposed to be spread, and it was throughout her whole body. and it was like stage 4, so she's fully not going to recover. And I swear for 5 years she went through hell, like breaking bones, going through chemotherapy. You couldn't even hug her. She could barely walk at the end. You know what I mean? She made the whole 5 years, and then bam, she passed away. So at this point, like, I was talking with her over text messages and just telling her how proud I was, this and that. And I would go almost a day or two sometimes not talking to her, because I was like dealing with this big, marijuana grow up in my backyard that I thought was important, which was like a load of shit. It was just me lost in my mind. I was really good at it, and I grew a lot, and I was always growing. It was more or less an insane hobby that took off even further. It's kind of when everything became legal too, so like it was my opportunity to go big and hopefully start a medicinal marijuana business where then I could help others, But I realized the marijuana was never really helping me. It was just clouding my mind, clouding my dreams, clouding everything in my life a little bit, and I was hiding underneath it. So I had the girl up, she died, and I literally, like, I think that's when I hit rock bottom. Like it was like the breaking the neck, my mother, and then that, where it was like certain chunks of me went lower and lower and lower, and then I was like at my lowest that I could ever like feel emotionally, spiritually. Not so much like when I was at Sick Kids and I was like on a ventilator. That was more like to me, and I was like thinking like, how the hell did I get here? But now this is like seeing all this pain and suffering through my mother and Lindsay, and I'm realizing how lucky I really am. But then again, I'm losing my mind. I remember going outside just yelling at the universe, like, what do you want from me? And like I got super, super, super sick after she died. Like I was like insane sick. I went to the emergency 5 separate times, and this is during COVID. And they just kept putting me on antibiotics, which was destroying my microbiome, my gut. Eventually I just stopped taking them. They didn't even know what was wrong. It was coming out in my skin. It was my liver. It was my stress was lowering my cortisol. And it was just leading me down this really weird, spiritual, painful path that I now look at it like a blessing, because it's led me down such a more positive road in life, and just a way of looking at how much more magical and how superhuman we all are. I started meditating a ton. I started doing breathing practices. I started trying to eat healthier. This and that. I started, studying ancient geometry, sacred geometry, and that's when my brain just lit right up and realized, holy shit, there's a lot more to this world than I think there is. And I even believe there's another world up there where my mother and Lindsay are, parallel universes or something pretty wild. But I literally that was the point where I snapped from that illness after a month of being sick, 2 months, and just said, no, this is it. And I studied and studied and studied. And I'm the type of guy that if it's cooking or marijuana or games, sports, I just like taking things to that next level. And so I studied my ass off through YouTube, the dark web, the black web, whatever you call it. I just did everything I possibly could to empower myself and start realizing that we're all geometry, we're all math, we're all frequencies, vibrations, like Albert Einstein said, and like Nikola Tesla. You have the key to the universe, or you have the key to the universe. You know the magnificence of 3, 6, and 9, which is a lot of the sacred geometry, and which is all built within us, our golden ratio. So I started leading down this path, started meditating, and then eventually this is where I found this property with a waterfall. And I'm now here, I've got no really family. It's just me and my friends. And I feel like the stuff that I've encountered in the last 3 years is so mind-blowing in my brain. And it's affected me so much in such a positive way that I've come from the lowest possible points in my life to like some extreme highs where I just feel like, I'm heaven on earth, where I'm like, just something weird happens when you start to breathe right and you start to introduce a lot of love and good mindset in your life. Things just, doors open up, life opens up, just being in the now, staring at the trees, your dogs, your kids, just respecting the now and not worrying about the past or the present or the future, But that's kind of my story, how I've gotten to this specific point in my life as a quadriplegic. It's one heck of a long journey. I feel like I've lived a few different lives. I almost feel like I'm like an Egyptian, king or something weird. I've got 4 dogs that are St. Bernards with endearing names, and they said a lot of the kings had 4 dogs with endearing names, So I don't know, maybe I reincarnated myself or something into this body, and this was part of the whole idea of the pain and suffering. But I feel like that's just me, talking about the past, which is, leads to depression. So really, you just gotta be in the now and really enjoy your days, So I love everybody. I love you all. And thanks for listening to my story if you got to this far in. So yeah, that's my story. It's been one heck of an adventure, and it's still continuing. So let's see what happens. Ciao for now.